Hey you, it's not Kaiti Yoo, but let's talk about our book recs.
I finished it in one sitting, or I read all my books laying down in bed in my Kindle. So one laying down in my bed session to read this book, total of 2 hours.
Derek Sivers is best known for his really successful business called CD Baby, which, in case you don't know, it's the most popular music site for independent artists. From his 10 years of experience, he wrote the book Anything You Want, where he shares logical but unconventional ways to build a business. I definitely agree with Katie's thoughts about this book, one of them being that his writing is short but sweet, which is apparently Derek Sivers' writing style, just the way I like it. I checked out his books. They're really short. It's only around 50 to 100 pages. This book, Anything You Want, has around 50 pages. So if you want to read but you don't have time for it, definitely check out Derek Sivers' books. A lot of the advice about business here that he gave are so good. It's not one of those business tips where they tell you stuff like you're gonna have to make your own business model diagram. Like Katie said, it has no business jargon, just plain basic English that you anyone can understand. You don't actually have to be a business owner or an aspiring entrepreneur to read this book. It actually is applicable in your personal life. I love how he's never in it for the money, so you can really tell that he provided genuinely good service. And because of that, the business doesn't reek desperation, not those kind of businesses where they would manipulate customers to give the money. It was at midnight on Halloween. Jen is anxiously waiting for her son to come home. When he finally came home, all of a sudden, she sees her son, her beautiful, nerdy, goofy, happy son, stabbing a strange man in front of their house. She couldn't believe her eyes. She couldn't believe that he would do such a thing. She couldn't believe that this is actually happening in front of her house. So when he was taken to custody, she went home, fell asleep in despair, and when she wakes up, it's yesterday. And each morning, every time she wakes up, she goes further back in the past, going from days, weeks, even years before the murder. She realizes that somewhere in the past has something to do with Todd's murder, and it's up to her to fix all that. You should read this. This book is so good. When you do, I recommend you dedicate one day to read this book because you're not going to want to put this book down. Believe me, you're not going to want to take your eyes off of this book. I made the mistake of first reading it during lunchtime, and so when the lunch break's over and I have to go back to work, I was like, no, give me more time. The author definitely knows how to reel the readers in and keep their attention for hours. Just by the first chapter alone, you're reading it and then you're like, oh my gosh, what's happening next? I guts to know, I guts to know. It's a thriller, but it's not that scary. It's not scary at all, I think. It's a murder mystery, but not exactly, because you already know who commit the murder. I said that before. It's in the synopsis, but it's more like you finding out why that happened in the first place. You really get to unravel clues in every chapter, and I love how you, the reader, get to solve the mystery together with the main character, the mom, Jen. And the plot twists blew my mind. You have to read it. You have to read it easily. 5 stars for me. Some of them I've already seen them coming, so if you get to see that your assumptions are correct, it's so satisfying. 30 is not the new 20. The author and psychologist Mike J argues that 20 somethings have to let go of this misinformation and many others, and that they actually have to live intentionally in this most defining years of adulthood. She shares her research as well as anecdotes of her 20 something clients in their therapy sessions about their 20 something problems. Like Katie said in her review, the book addresses some of the common sayings, such as, you're young, you have all the time in the world, everything is possible, you don't have to decide now. Also, marriage and kids are the things you can figure out as you go. If you're in your 20s, do yourself a favor and read this book. Of course, you have to live intentionally throughout your life because you only live once and your time is very limited. It's the only currency that you can't get back. But again, like the author says, the 20s are the most defining years of your adulthood, and so you really have to be mindful of your choices. I'm going to share my favorite quote in this book, which is actually at the very end. And it says, "The future isn't written in the stars. There are no guarantees. So claim your adulthood, be intentional, get to work, pick your family, do the math, make your own certainty. Don't be defined by what you didn't know or didn't do. You are deciding your life right now." If this doesn't get you to read this book or kick your butt to start really living in your 20s, what will? You see, a lot of people later in life, 30s and above, regret that they've been wasting their lives thinking that they have a lot of time in their hands, but they didn't, and they just wasted all of that precious time. You don't want to end up with that regret, do you?
Hint emerald green. Hint pearls. Come on, you still can't guess who it is?
This book follows Monique Grant, an obscure writer who is requested by a movie icon called Evelyn Hugo, who is ready to tell the truth about her glamorous and scandalous life. The question is, why her and why now? I am pretty sure that you're already familiar with this book. It was really popular and trending a year ago or 2 years ago. People raved about this book, so it's been in my TBR for a while now. Finally get to read it, and now I understand why. Captivating story, beautifully written. The characters are so complex, nuanced. It's not one dimensional. You really get to see what Evelyn Hugo does and why she does it and how she is wired to do stuff like that. I sensed a plot twist coming when I started reading it, and so as I was going through the book, I speculated and formulated what the plot twist could have been. But then I got so lost in the story that when the plot twist actually happens, I was so shocked. I did not see that coming. My mind was blown. I cried. The one thing that made me not want to read this book again is that it has spicy scenes. It's not really heavily graphic, but I'm still not comfortable with that, no matter what sexuality the romantic interests are. So when I see a scene where two people are making out and or more, let's skip. But of course, that has nothing to do with the rating of the book. Just, it's not the book, it's me. By the way, Katie recommended a book summary Notion template by Ali Abdal. I tried it, it's really good. It definitely helps you retain the information of what you just read. So, definitely recommended. I'll link that Notion template in the description or in the comments. And I'll link Kaiti Yoo's Instagram in the description as well. She recommended a lot of books in her Instagram stories highlights. And I think that's all I have for you today. Bye bye.